We now move on to the 2016 mains question paper. The first case study is somewhat similar to the Sterlite Tuticorin story. A fresh employee in a chemical company finds that the company is discharging toxic waste into a nearby river. Her colleagues advise her to keep quiet or risk losing her job. She is the sole breadwinner. At the same time, her conscience is pricking her. Why keeping quiet is not morally right, and what course of action should she adopt? Now, several case studies questions will be of this type. This is what is called whistleblowers. Should you blow the whistle about some grave irregularity in your company or in the government? We already saw the case of Edward Snowden in USA, who blew the whistle about the various surveillance programs of the US government. Now, in this case, she is the fresh employee, is the sole breadwinner of her family, and she finds that the chemical company is discharging toxic waste, affecting the health and the lives of people downstream, toxic waste into a river, affecting the health and lives of the people downstream. Her colleagues tell her, don't raise the issue, otherwise they'll dismiss you summarily. But her moral conscience doesn't permit her to keep quiet. So the question is, how should she go about it? First question, should she keep quiet or raise the issue? Of course, she should raise the issue. Keeping quiet is not morally right. Why? Because the health and lives of persons are at stake. A lot of people are at stake. Second, should she come out openly or should she come out stealthily? Should she leak the information openly? Should she blow the whistle openly or should she blow it stealthily? Now, doing it openly is ruled out because she has been advised by her seniors that anyone who mentions the topic in the company will be summarily dismissed. She happens to be the sole breadwinner for the family, and it would certainly not be advisable to blow the whistle openly. So she has to do it stealthily. When I say stealthily, this may have a certain negative connotation. Normally, you would expect an employee to be totally loyal to her company and not do anything against the company's interests stealthily. But there may be some circumstances where this doesn't hold good. For example, if the company is guilty of grave irregularities and violations of law, as in this case, or when people's lives and health are at stake, as in this case, then you can argue that public interest overrides the company's interests and the employee would be justified in resorting to stealth to protect herself and to protect the public. So, well, normally you don't like employees being disloyal to the company or doing things by stealth. This is an exception. If she is leaking the information to, say, a reputed social worker or an NGO or a journalist, she should take care to protect herself. Her identity should not be revealed. She should make sure that these people will not double-cross her. They may tell the company so-and-so leaked this, gave the information to us, and in which case the company will simply dismiss, not only dismiss her, but it may also sue her for damages. You know, in most private companies, the employees are required to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So the company may even sue her, and she may have to walk up and down a court of law for 10 years, and finally be slapped with damages for 10 lakhs or more for leaking company secrets. So she has to be very, very careful. Should she act alone or in a group of like-minded employees? I think it is better to act alone because more people are involved, the greater the chances of the thing coming out and the company management coming to know that's about this conspiracy. Now, it is not simply enough if she tells the journalist or the social worker or the NGO that such and such a wrong thing is happening. She should give some concrete evidence. Simply saying it orally will not suffice. Now, what kind of concrete evidence should she be able to give? I can think of at least 3 things. One, she should be able to give hard evidence in the form of the place and times of the secret discharge of toxic waste into the river. She should be able to say the discharge is happening in such and such a place, usually at 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. And she should be able to give hard evidence like that, if possible with photographs and videographic evidence. Second, if there are any copies of the lab reports, usually, when before the effluents are released, they should have a lab test will be done to see whether the various toxic elements are within the permissible limits. If she can lay her hands on the lab reports, and if these lab reports show that the effluents contain toxic elements dangerously above the permitted levels, then the company's guilt is established. Of course, it's not very easy for her to get her hand on these lab reports, but with some effort, it can always be done. Third would be copies of the company's internal memos and minutes showing that its managers were knowingly and willfully discharging the toxic effluents to the river. Usually, such things can't be kept entirely oral. The company's senior executives would be exchanging internal memos or be conducting meetings and recording minutes. And these memos and minutes and other company documents may show that the managers were knowingly and willfully discharging the toxic effluents to the river. Now, but these documents also may be somewhat difficult to get hold of, but she should try. I remember a funny case where we did a sales tax raid of one of the leading companies in Chennai, and we found a detailed circular issued by the management saying how to evade sales tax, a step-by-step circular saying do this, do this, do this. And the last sentence said, please destroy the circular after reading, lest it fall into the hands of the sales tax authorities. It so happened the circular actually fell into our hands. So it's quite likely that the company will have certain internal memos and minutes that will be incriminating. Now, even if the last two items are not available, if she can pinpoint the place and the times where the secret discharge of toxic waste is being done, that may suffice. The person or agency to whom the information is leaked can always collect samples of toxic effluents and subject them to lab tests in an independent agency. This should be done on several days over a long period to make the case stronger. One test result is not enough. You have to say that on multiple days the company is doing this kind of discharge. So the employee should also request the person or agency to whom she has leaked this information to complain to the State Pollution Control Board or file a PIL before the High Court and ensure that the story is carried prominently in the mainstream media, in the social media, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp and all that. And she should also request them to organize the affected people to agitate against the company's unethical action. But while doing all this, she should stay in the background. So let us recapitulate quickly. There are two options to blow the whistle about the company discharging toxic waste into the river, either openly or stealthily or surreptitiously. Doing it openly is ruled out because the fresh employee has been advised that anyone who talks about this will be summarily dismissed. And she is the sole breadwinner of the family. She can't risk it. So she has no other go but to do it stealthily. Under normal circumstances, an employee should be totally loyal to her company and not do anything against its interests stealthily. But when the company is guilty of grave irregularities and violations of law, or when people's lives and health are at stake, as in this case, public interest overrides the company's interest, and the employee would be justified in resorting to stealth to protect herself and the public. She should take care to ensure that the person or agency to whom she leaks the information, it may be a reputed social worker or an NGO or a journalist, whoever it may be, she should take care to ensure that this person is genuine and trustworthy and will not double-cross her by revealing her identity to the management or any public authority under any circumstances. Whatever she tells them should be supported by, it's not enough if she merely says something wrong is going on. She should be able to provide some hard evidence, such as the place and times of the secret discharge of toxic waste with the photographs if possible, or copies of the lab results of the effluents showing that the toxic elements are dangerously above the permitted levels, or copies of the company's internal memos and minutes showing that its managers were knowingly and willfully discharging the toxic effluents to the river. The latter two documents may be somewhat difficult to get hold of, but she should try. When the place and times of secret discharge are known, the person or agency to whom the information is leaked can always collect samples of the toxic effluents and subject them to lab tests in an independent agency. This should be done on several days or a long period to make the case stronger. She should also request the person or agency to complain about the toxic leak to the State Pollution Control Board, file a PIL or a public interest litigation before the High Court, ensure that the story is carried in the mainstream media and the social media, and to organize the affected people to agitate against the company's unethical action. The next question is not really a case studies question. It's about acquisition of land belonging to tribals and other rural poor, destroying their traditional ways of living, and they end up as low-paid migrant laborers. The costs of development are borne by these people, while the benefits go to industrialists and urban dwellers. How will you draft a suitable compensation cum rehabilitation policy for such displaced persons? There is any amount of material available on the web. You can also, there are a number of articles and books written on this subject. This is not really a case study, so I request you to refer to one of them. I'll move on to the next case study. The next case study is quite interesting. It says an old, illiterate and destitute lady needs old age pension but has no supporting documents. Sanctioning pension without documents would be violation of rules. Denying her support would be inhuman. How to solve the dilemma? This case study comes under the category which I mentioned earlier, but perhaps this is the first time the case study is coming. Cutting through bureaucratic procedure for public good. Remember, I told you that bureaucracy operates through procedure, rules, processes, procedures. Now, if you follow the rules too rigidly, then you may not be able to get many things done, or even if you get them done, it will take a long time. In fact, there is a type of agitation called work to rule, which shows that if you follow the procedure to the letter T, then it is possible not to do any work at all. So there may be times when you may have to cut corners, but not cut corners so much that you land in trouble. There may be times when you need to fast track the procedure in the interest of public good. So this is eligible for old age pension. But because she is illiterate, destitute, and has nobody to help her, it will be nearly impossible for her to produce the age certificate and income certificate. Age certificate to prove that she is more than 60 years old, and income certificate to prove that she is below the poverty line. It will be impossible for her to produce them on her own. At the same time, sanctioning her OAP, however genuine her case may be, without the supporting documents would also be violation of rules. I can get into serious trouble if I do that. So what should I do? My answer is that I would put one of my subordinates on this job. The old lady is not likely to have any documents in her possession. She is not likely to have, for example, a date of birth certificate or a SSLC certificate as proof of date of birth. So how do we prove her age? Her age may have to be certified approximately by a government medical doctor after examining her. Doctors do it, usually in respect of people who don't have a birth certificate. A doctor will examine their bones and structure and other things and say, this person is approximately so many years old. In this case, the precise age doesn't matter. If the doctor can certify that she is more than 60, that's enough. She'll be eligible for whether she is 65 or 70 or 75, doesn't matter. All that we need to know from the doctor is if she is more than 60 years old. A doctor can certify that. So one thing is to get an age certificate from a doctor. Of course, the doctor will not respond properly if she goes by herself. So I will speak to the doctor and request him to issue the certificate very speedily. Next is her below the poverty line status. Now this may have to be certified by the concerned village administrative officer or by the village panchayat president. In fact, to strengthen the case, it would be better to get a certificate from both. Of course, she is actually destitute and I will speak to both the VAO and the village panchayat president and request them to issue a certificate on behalf of this lady immediately. If any legal fees are not bribes, if any legal fees are payable for these certificates to the doctor, the VAO, or the panchayat president, I will give the money to my subordinate who is on this job. I'll say, don't ask the old lady for money. I'll give you the money. Keep it. I'll also follow up this case closely until all the documents are available. Old age pension is to be credited to a bank account. I mean, those in the past it used to be sent by money order. Nowadays, old age pension is credited. All the pensioners are requested to open bank accounts, and the old age pension money is credited to their bank accounts. It is quite likely this old lady will not have a bank account also. So what do I need? I need to speak to the bank manager who left to himself will not open a bank account for her so easily. So I'll speak to him and put my subordinate on the job and assist her in opening her first bank account. So even after, of course, the sanction, the old age pension will be, the sanctioning authority is myself. Even after I sanction the OAP, I'll follow up the case until the first month's pension is credited to her bank account and she's able to withdraw it and spend it. So as you see here, there's a lot of procedure involved. That is, you have to prove that she is to be eligible for old age pension. She has to be more than 60 years. So it means an age certificate is necessary. She doesn't have any document. So a medical doctor will have to certify her age. Now to show that she is below the poverty line, a certificate from the VAO or panchayat president or preferably both would be necessary. Of course, different states may have different requirements, but let us assume for simplicity's sake that certificates from the VAO and village panchayat president are necessary. Now, left to herself, if she were to approach these people, they would either not give her the certificates or they would delay matters by several days or weeks or even months. So I'll have to put my subordinate on the job and I'll also speak to these officers and get the certificates very fast. Now, since the old age pension has to be credited to the bank account, I'll also have to assist her in opening a bank account. So this shows that it is possible, if you have a genuine heart to help, then it is possible to fast track the bureaucratic procedure and help a person who is genuinely in need. Let's recapitulate the answer. Only a person over 60 years of age and below the poverty line is eligible for the old age pension or OAP. Since this old lady is illiterate, destitute, and has nobody to help her, it will be nearly impossible for her to get an age certificate and an income certificate on her own. At the same time, if I sanction her the OAP without any of these supporting documents, I would be committing a grave violation of the rules. So what do? I'll put one of my subordinates on the job and the job of expediting all these documents. The old lady is not likely to have any documents in her possession. Her age, for example, she is not likely to have any document regarding her age. So her age will have to be certified by a medical doctor by examining her bones or whatever. And I will speak to the doctor and request him to issue the certificate that she is over the 60 years old quickly. Her below the poverty line status or BPL status may have to be certified by the concerned village administrative officer or the village panchayat president, preferably both. I will speak to both of them and request them to issue this certificate very speedily. If any legal fees are payable for these certificates, I will give the money to my subordinate who is on this job. I will follow up the case closely until all the documents are available. After I sanction the old age pension, the money is to be credited to a bank account. The old lady is not likely to have a bank account also. So I will speak to the nearest bank branch manager, and assist her in opening her bank account. Even after I sanction the OAP, I will follow up the case until her first month's OAP is credited to her bank account and she is able to withdraw it and spend it. The next question is very interesting. It's about a good boss who is a wife beater. Should you ignore his wife abuse as a personal matter or report it to the appropriate authority? Or is there any other innovative approach? The case study says that you are an assistant to the director of your department who is a good boss and he likes you. One day when you went to his house, you hear a woman crying. Of course, you didn't see her, but you hear a woman crying and you assume that it must be the boss's wife. And when you ask around in the office, they say, yes, he's a good boss in the office, but at home, he's a tyrant. He subjects his wife to domestic violence. Now the question, the case study poses three options and asks you to analyze each one of them. First, just ignore thinking about it because it is their personal matter. The first option is, okay, even if the boss is beating his wife, is it really any of your business? It is their private matter, so just ignore it. If the wife has any serious problems, one would expect her or her relatives, parents, brothers, sisters, or her friends to come to her aid and either report the matter to the appropriate authority for domestic violence or initiate steps to seek divorce. Why should you poke your nose into the matter? You are a total rank outsider. So the first option, that is ignoring the matter and leaving it to the boss and his wife to sort things out, is a perfectly sound option, and we have to keep this in mind. The second option is report the case to the appropriate authority. For the reasons which I said earlier, my reporting the matter to the appropriate authority against my boss would not be correct. It would be immature, it would be inappropriate. In fact, barring office gossip, I don't even have any concrete evidence that my boss really is a wife beater. I mean, I did go to his house and did hear a woman cry, but I'm not sure that that woman was his wife. So I can't go by hearsay and office gossip, and I may look foolish. Tomorrow if this boss wife says, no, nothing of that kind, this fellow heard somebody else crying and mistook her to be me, I'll look really foolish. So the second option is ruled out because it would completely and irreparably damage my relationship with my boss if I were to file a complaint against him. Third, the question says, is there any other innovative approach to the situation? The answer is yes. There is another option. First, I should confirm from the boss's wife whether my boss is really a wife beater. I can't go by hearsay. I can't go by office gossip. Now, this confirmation process, I won't do it directly. It may not look nice if I call her up and ask, is your husband beating you? She may not even reply, and she may report to my boss, and he may really get annoyed with me. So instead, I'll find some lady who is a common friend of mine and of the boss's wife, and I'll request this lady to talk to the boss's wife and casually and find out from her if her husband is beating her. Now, it's possible that this lady may say, no, I won't do it, but if she does it, and the boss's wife says, no such thing is happening, then the matter is closed. If the boss's wife says to my friend, to the common friend, yes, he beats me, then the question arises as to how should I go about it. Obviously, I can't go and advise my boss, don't beat your wife. I mean, I'm not only younger than him in age, I'm also his subordinate, and the boss will not like it one bit. So what I should do is, maybe I should find some common friend of my boss and myself, a senior colleague or some other person, and request that common friend to gently put in a word to my boss to desist from beating his wife. Now, it is possible that this common friend may say no to my request. He may not want to get involved in the personal matters of others, but I will give it a try. Now, if he says no, or even after he advises my boss continues to beat his wife and doesn't change his ways, then I'll keep quiet. I have done whatever I could, and I don't think I should proceed beyond this matter. It's, after all, their personal matter, and the most important thing here is I should not come out in the open. I should remain behind the scene so that my good relationship with my boss is maintained. Let me summarize the answer quickly. The first option indicated in the question is to ignore my boss's wife beating as it is their private matter. If his wife really has any serious problems, then either she should file a complaint or one of her relatives, parents, siblings, they should file a complaint, or one of her friends should file a complaint. Why should I, who am a rank outsider, poke my nose in this matter? So ignoring the matter and leaving it to my boss and his wife to sort it out is a perfectly legitimate option, a perfectly sound option. The second option is report the case to the appropriate authority. For the reasons that I just mentioned, I should not report the case to the appropriate authority because it is a private matter and I don't have, and there are other people who are closer to the boss's wife who should do this, not me. In fact, if you think about it, barring office gossip and the sound that I heard, the sound of crying that I heard when I visited my boss's house, I really don't have any concrete proof that he is a wife beater. Now I look really silly and foolish if I file a complaint to the appropriate authority only to find, and only for the boss's wife to come out and deny and say nothing like that. And my relationship with my boss will also be irreparably damaged, harming my career prospects. So I think this option is ruled out. The question says, option C, is there any other innovative approach? There is. I will first confirm from his wife whether the boss is really a wife beater. Of course, I can't talk to her directly. I'll find a common friend who is, and request that common, preferably a lady, and I'll request that common friend to ascertain from the boss's wife whether he really ill-treats her. If she says no, then the chapter is closed. If she says yes, then the question now arises as to how I should proceed further. Of course, there's no question of my advising my boss directly. At all times, I should remain behind the scenes. I'm not only far junior to him, I'm far younger than him in age. I'm also junior to him by rank. He will not relish it one bit. He will think that I'm exceeding my brief if I venture to advise him. So if at all I wish to take this matter forward, I should find some common friend of my boss and me, some senior executive, senior colleague, or some other person, tell him all the facts, and request him to gently advise my boss. Now, it's quite possible that he may refuse to do it. He may not want to get involved. If he refuses to do it, then I'll drop the matter there. If he agrees to do it, advises my boss, but my boss still doesn't mend his ways, again I'll drop the matter. I have done what little I could. Because strictly speaking, as I said in the answer to the option 1, this is their private matter, and there are so many other options for the wife, and I should really not be poking my nose in this matter. But at all times, I'll make sure that I am behind the scenes and my relationship with my boss doesn't get strained. The next case study is about a multinational company, MNC, which wants to start a unit in an undeveloped but tranquil region which is resented by the locals. They fear increased cost of living, immigration of aliens, and disturbances to the social and economic order. What are the issues involved? How to satisfy the company's goals and address the locals' concerns. I can relate very much to this question because I used to be the sub-collector of Hosur long back, and the case of Hosur was exactly like this. It used to be a nice, tranquil town with excellent climate. And after the Sipcot Industrial Estate was set up in Hosur in 1971, the cost of living went up. A number of outsiders came into Hosur. Air and water pollution increased. Crimes increased. And there were various disturbances to the social and economic order. Though the companies and the government made promises of jobs to the locals, these promises were seldom kept, and the locals usually got only the low-paying or menial jobs, with the better jobs going to outsiders. If and when the government acquired land for the Sipcot Industrial Estate, a lot of the locals lost their farmlands also and their traditional ways of living. So, a new industry coming to a tranquil, underdeveloped region is not always a blessing. Quite often, it is resented by the locals. So it is not therefore surprising that the inhabitants of Vikaspuri, as per the case study, are not happy about the MNC setting up its new plant, and they are planning to file a PIL before the High Court. It is not clear from the narrative whether the new industry is a polluting one, like say Sterlite Industries. If so, then the agitation is likely to be very vigorous. If it is not a polluting industry, then there is a good chance of persuading the villagers. The company should also try to address some of the other concerns of the locals by reserving a certain percentage of jobs for locals. Okay, the higher middle level management jobs and higher level jobs obviously cannot be given to locals. I mean, they have to go to the best candidates available from all over the country. But lower level jobs, I mean the clerical jobs and some small procurement tenders and contracts, they can always be given to the locals without compromising efficiency and quality. The company should show its good intent and try to win the locals' goodwill by doing some CSR activity. CSR, as you know, is corporate social responsibility. Some CSR activity, say a school, building a school or a hospital, water supply facility, skill training institute, an important road, or anything else that is the felt need of the villagers, even before putting up its plant. That is, it's one thing to do the CSR after the plant has come up and it is up and running. It's another thing. In a case like this, where trouble is brewing, it may be a good idea to show the company's good intent and win the locals' goodwill by building a school or hospital or water supply system or whatever the locals need upfront, even before the main plant has come up. That will definitely impress the locals. And as I have said in so many other questions, the company should try to identify the authority figures and opinion leaders of the village and try to win them over and use their influence to persuade the people that the industry will only be good for them and they should withdraw their agitation. The company, as we saw in another case where some 40 people gate crashed into a company demanding jobs, it's very important that the company cultivates good relationships with the district administration, the police, the local politicians, the local NGOs, and enlist their support, because you never know when a crisis will happen. Let me recapitulate quickly. A new industry coming to a tranquil, underdeveloped region is often resented by the locals. They fear increased cost of living, immigration of aliens, air and water pollution, more crimes, and disturbances to the social and economic order. Promises of more jobs are seldom kept, and the locals usually get only the low-paying or menial jobs. It is therefore not surprising that the inhabitants of Vikaspuri are not happy about the MNC setting up its new plant, and they are planning to file a PIL before the High Court. It is not clear from the narrative of the case study whether the new industry is a polluting one or a non-polluting one. If it is a polluting one, then the agitation is going to be very strong and the chances are not very good. But if it is a non-polluting one, there is a fairly good chance of persuading the villagers to accept the company, to accept the new plant. The company should try to win over the goodwill of the people, locals, not by making empty promises, but by actually doing certain things. For example, it can say that it has reserved 10% of the jobs at the lower levels for the locals. It can also reserve certain percentage of small tenders, procurements for local contractors and local builders. Normally, companies do their corporate social responsibility activities like putting up a school or a hospital or a skill training institute or constructing a road or whatever after the plant is up and running. In this case, the company can show its good intent and try to win the goodwill of the people by doing at least one CSR activity upfront, even before putting up its plant. The company should also try to identify the authority figures or opinion leaders in the community, try to win them over and use their influence to persuade the villagers to call off their agitation. And the company must have the goodwill and support of all the other stakeholders in the region, such as the district administration, the police, the local political leaders, NGOs and others, and it must try to consciously cultivate them. Otherwise, they can either cause trouble or in times of trouble, they may not come to the company's aid. The last case study in the 2016 mains question paper is about the problems faced by a NGO in starting a new school due to bureaucratic corruption, delays, and cumbersome procedures. How can government exercise due control over voluntary social work without thwarting or demotivating well-meaning, honest NGOs? Now, the case study says that this particular NGO wanted to start a school to provide good quality modern education at a nominal cost. But even though it is trying to do good, there are a lot of obstacles were being placed in its path in the form of bureaucratic corruption, delays, and cumbersome procedures. All of us are aware of these bottlenecks, and they can demotivate anybody, even a well-meaning and honest NGO. Now, the question says, what measures can you suggest to ensure the due control over NGOs is exercised, but well-meaning, honest NGOs are not thwarted? See, it is not enough if you act upon the complaints case by case, that is in a random ad hoc manner. That is not enough. Better method is to devise systems by which such instances of corruption, delays, and cumbersome procedure are minimized through periodic monitoring. You may remember in an earlier case I had said, one way to curb irregularities is to do a lot of inspections, meetings and all that. But the most effective way is to devise systems to prevent irregularities from happening. I said prevention is better than cure. Similarly here, solving problems of individual NGOs on a case-by-case basis as and when complaints are received, okay, that has to be done anyway. But a better method is to devise systems and procedures by which such complaints are minimized, if not entirely prevented. As the management guru, Peter Drucker, said, what gets monitored gets done. Unless you monitor regularly, things won't be done. If I were a district collector, I would have a quarterly meeting with all NGOs in the district to review the pendency of their applications with various departments. When the pendency is monitored regularly in this manner, there will be progress and the government staff will be held accountable. Such a system is already in force with regard to the monthly single window clearances for industries. Essentially, I'll be introducing the same system for NGOs. I'll also be open to feedback from NGOs at other times as well. The mere fact that they can complain to the collector will keep the government servants on their toes. Now, basically, we are applying Peter Drucker's dictum that what gets monitored gets done. If you don't institute a system of monitoring, then the problems faced by NGOs will continue. Now, in Tamil Nadu, for example, you have what is called a grievance day on every Monday morning, where the collectors are supposed to remain at headquarters and receive petitions from people coming from all over the district. Similarly, collectors are expected to conduct monthly meetings, such as the single window meetings, for expediting clearances for industries. Clearances may be sought from various departments, and left to themselves, these things will take a long time. But when the collector reviews these periodically, once a month, then if not in the first month, if not in the second month, the things will surely get done in the third month or fourth month. But without a review, it may remain pending endlessly. So regular monitoring is the key. Now, for many activities, such systems of monitoring are already there. But I think in the case of NGOs, there is no system, to the best of my knowledge, of a periodic review meeting. What I'm proposing here is a quarterly review meeting with NGOs. The various NGOs can write to the collectorate saying which of their applications are pending in which department. And during the meeting, the collector can review the pendency with various departments, including his own department, and help the NGOs in getting the clearances faster. There's one more point, that we should not treat all NGOs in the same manner. There will be some good NGOs, there will be some bad NGOs, and there will be some ugly NGOs. So, as a collector, I should identify which are the good and honest NGOs, and I should treat them with greater respect and give them all support and encourage them to do even better. At the same time, I should identify the bad NGOs which swindle funds or play mischief, and I should mark them for closer monitoring. So this way, I think the problems of NGOs will be, it is not correct to treat all NGOs in the same way. Different NGOs should be treated differently depending on how good or how bad they are. Let me summarize the answer. Bureaucratic corruption, delays and cumbersome procedures can thwart and demotivate well-meaning and honest NGOs. Solving their problems on a case-by-case basis, as and when complaints are received, is one thing. But a better method is to devise systems by which such instances of corruption, delays, and cumbersome procedures are minimized through periodic monitoring. As Peter Drucker, the management guru, said, what gets monitored gets done. So if I were a district collector, I would have a quarterly meeting with all NGOs in the district to review the pendency of their applications with various departments. When the pendency is monitored regularly in this manner, there will be progress, and the government staff will be held accountable. Essentially, I'll be introducing the single window clearance system for industries, which is already in vogue in the districts for NGOs. And it would not be proper to treat all NGOs, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the same manner. I'll identify the good and honest NGOs, treat them with greater respect, provide them more support, and encourage them to do even better. I'll also identify the bad NGOs and mark them for closer